Welcome back to another episode of What the Heck Is That Noise? So ever since we acquired this analog mixing console, we've been literally inundated with a couple of emails from people saying, hey, I've got one of these old consoles and it makes a terrible buzzing noise. Have you got any idea what it is? In this video, I'm going to be talking about three of the main types of interference that you're likely to encounter while using analog hardware like this. Now, the first type of interference that you're likely to encounter is radio frequency interference. So this is usually received by pieces of equipment that haven't been shielded very well. It tends to be, in my experience, guitar pedals, cheap guitar pedals. They haven't got any shielding in them, and they tend to pick up erroneous radio frequencies that are travelling through the air. Things like your local taxi rank, radio stations, anything really that can, telephones, anything that can be picked up in radio waves through the air. And it sounds a little bit something like this. Now, the second type of interference that you're likely to encounter is power related. This could be from any number of your outboard pieces of equipment, or even your main power supply unit for your actual console. Truth be told, you should be, if you're doing professional audio recording, you should be using a power conditioner. So everything you see behind me here is running through a power conditioner. We're using a Furman. There are other brands available. We're not sponsored by them at all. And like I say, everything here is running through that power conditioner. If you're encountering a sort of a power buzzy sound, it will probably sound something like this. And the best way to track it down is to go through each individual piece of equipment, turning it off and disconnecting it and seeing if it goes away. If you find that you've got a piece of outboard equipment that as soon as you turn it on, the buzzing appears, then it's likely the power related to that piece of equipment. So if it isn't going through a power conditioner, perhaps run it through one, or I would maybe open up the case and check the grounds on it. Some of these rack units, they're in a metal chassis. It will be grounded to the chassis, and if it's not screwed into your rack properly, you could also be introducing some kind of problematic grounding effect that way, and that could be introducing your buzzing. It could be something within your console. You could have a capacitor that's going bad. Fingers crossed it's not that. For an example, on this console, when we received it, it had previously been daisy chained with another console. So this is a 32 track. It had been daisy chained with another 24 track, and the 24 had been removed. They put it back to a 32, and the main channel fader underneath this panel where it had been connected, the connection just wasn't plugged in all the way. That might have happened when we moved it, or it just might have when they put it back together they didn't plug it in properly. Either way, we found that was creating a little background buzz. So if you've got a buzz and you've eliminated everything else and you're just looking at the console, then literally go through channel by channel, switching things off, muting them out, seeing if you can track down where it is, and you'll probably find within the console somewhere you've got a loose connection. Now, the third and final, and also the most likely culprit of your background buzzing noise that you're encountering using this equipment is probably related to one of these. This is a digital audio interface, and you've probably got it plugged into a Mac or a computer, and the communication between this and the computer is leaching into your analog hardware somewhere. And these are very noisy pieces of equipment when they're talking to each other, and this communication, this computerized digital communication noise sounds like this. And it's very annoying. Now, the reason it gets into hardware like this is because of these. I don't know if you can see that there on the camera. So this is a tip sleeve connector, and this, if you can see that, is a tip ring sleeve connector. You were probably thinking, oh, this is a mono connector and this is a stereo connector. That's not strictly true. It's got nothing to do with mono and stereo. Within this cable there are two wires. Think of it as like a circuit. You've got a positive and a negative, and in your tip ring and sleeve there are three. So you've got a positive, a negative and a ground. and the ground is grounding out the interference. And it's not just jack connectors that can cause this phenomena. It's any kind of connector really. There's got a phono connector here, and it has an inner and an outer core. Any kind of connection that only has 2 pins essentially can lead to ground loop interference. You might be able to see behind me there we've got the XLR leads. The reason why we use XLRs for microphones is because there are 3 pin connectors, so you've got the positive, negative and the ground. They'll also be well shielded from any interference. Old analog interfacing equipment is usually full of connections that only have 2 pins, and this is where the phenomena of ground loop interference really arises with this kind of equipment. When these old analog consoles were designed, computers had no place in a recording studio, and as far as I'm concerned, they really still shouldn't either, but nevertheless, here we are talking about it today. Now I've explained that in a very simplistic way. If you want to learn more about ground loop interference, I'm sure there's another video on YouTube where you can get stuck into the science of it all and really understand it, but from our point of view, we just want to try and solve the problem. Now, you could try, if you're using your digital audio interface with a laptop, you could try unplugging a laptop from the mains. That might disconnect the ground loop, although it's unlikely. If you've got maybe a small setup, that might be the case. If you've got a big setup like we have here, that probably won't solve it. What you should really be doing, or shouldn't be doing, is more of the case. You shouldn't be recording directly to your Mac or your laptop or your computer, whatever it is, or an external hard drive like that. You should have an external recording device which is specifically designed to record from your digital audio interface, and then you can communicate with that with your Mac or your computer. These are specifically designed to shield your other hardware from all the noise and interference that computerized communication leads to. But by far and away, the best way to eliminate this digital audio interference is to take your Mac and your audio interface and chuck them in the garbage where they belong. Quite frankly, if you're using old hardware like this, you should be using it in how it was designed, and it was designed to be used in a fully analog manner. So use it with a tape machine. This is the way we do things. We record multi-track to the tape, and then once we're happy and we've completed the mix down, then we will convert it to digital using a digital recorder specifically for that task. So we don't have any connection between the analog and the digital world until the very, very end. And like I say, we're using a device specifically designed for doing that 2-track digital recording. So yeah, I hope that's helped. If you've been encountering some sort of noise with your analog hardware, if you have and you've managed to solve it somehow, I'd love to hear about that. So if you could write that down in the comments, that'd be great, or drop us an email. Anyway, talk is cheap, tape is not. I will see you in the next video.